Is a Caribbean theology possible? Well, it's important that we start this particular discussion by speaking a little bit more about what we mean by the Caribbean. The Caribbean is that region that lies southeast of the Gulf of Mexico and the North American mainland, basically, and it stretches all the way east of Central America through and north of South America. We talk about it consisting basically of all the islands of the Caribbean Sea, and that's about 700 in all when you talk about islands and islets and reefs and cays and so on. The principal countries of the Caribbean are countries like Cuba, Haiti, Puerto Rico, and of course Jamaica, where I am now, which is the largest English-speaking Caribbean country. And going further east, you have the islands of the you have the Leeward Islands and the Windward Islands, or the Greater and the Lesser Antilles, all the way down south to Trinidad, and then to on the South American continent you have Guyana and Suriname and British Guyana and French Guyana. Caribbean also sometimes takes in some countries of Central America, namely like Belize, and some people talk about Nicaragua and so on. Countries washed by the Caribbean Sea. However, when we speak of Caribbean, sometimes we also speak of those countries of the region that share European slavery and European colonization as a part of our heritage through a similar period, basically. And when we talk about European colonization and European slavery, we're talking about the colonization of the British and the Spanish and the French and the Portuguese, and the Danes and the Dutch in particular. So we're talking about a large region, and we're talking about an area that has been affected by what we might call the social experimentation of Europe, largely in their move to shore up their own economics, that they came and colonized the countries of this region, and they left their mark on us, so much of it very negative, even though we have to admit that there are some positive things too. Now, it's because of this diversity of background, this diversity of cultures that have come about because of the European footprint on the region, that many persons believe that a Caribbean theology is not possible. Remember, we're talking about the fact that theology is contextual, and there are so many different contexts within the Caribbean itself. How can we speak of one Caribbean theology? Well, there are thinkers like, Stephen Jennings, Reverend Stephen Jennings from Jamaica here, who says that a Caribbean theology is not possible. What we should be speaking of is Caribbean theologies. However, there are other thinkers who believe that the shared experience of European colonization and the continued neocolonization of the region is perhaps the most significant shaping influence on us. And we, as a Caribbean people, we share this in such a way that we cannot deny that we grapple every single day with this as a part of our reality. Now, we cannot deny that there are divergent cultures within the Caribbean, divergent religious expressions within the Caribbean. But in many senses, you will find that the Caribbean experience of domination has been heaped upon us as a people, that whether we came here, our ancestors came here through the North African slave trade, or whether they came because of indentured laborers, as indentured laborers from the Middle East and from the Far East, whatever it is, we have found that we have melded together in a Caribbean community in ways in which people of our ethnic backgrounds do not mix in other places. And we have this shared experience where even religious expressions influence each other. in a unique way not to be found anywhere else in the world. This is all because of the common experience of the European experimentation on our region, all for their own benefit. So this shared experience is what many people say makes a Caribbean theology possible. Caribbean theology must speak to this shared experience that we have as a people. So what would a Caribbean theology do if it were to try to address this situation that we face, common experiences as a people in the Caribbean, without minimizing our differences? There's a feeling that this European imposition upon us has left us as a people with a very strange or very strained identity. European colonization taught us that whatever came here that was not from Europe was not good. So there's a big move in Caribbean theology to what we call indigenization. We must recapture as a people the idea that we are of worth as human beings born with worth, but that the backgrounds from which we came also had worth. They are not in any sense inferior to the European ideas that came here. But apart from indigenization, there's a call for what we call liberation or emancipation. There is a sense in which the Caribbean people have been constantly economically deprived because of the desires of the more powerful nations that have continued to colonize us, and we must be liberated from them, that our people can experience as a region economic benefits for ourselves. A Caribbean theology must articulate a new way of moving forward that will help us with that. But also there's a sense of what some people call amelioration. The mere fact that this imposition has denied us so much economic benefit has also been seen in the way our societies remain stratified, where many persons amongst us will never be able to move beyond the communities of poverty in which they exist. A Caribbean theology must find ways of addressing those issues also, not just to speak about heaven, but speak about the reality of earth, that is a more just space for us to live in. What do we make of conversion? That is one big area of concern for evangelicals. We'll talk about the Caribbean evangelical theology. And what we would say is that a Christian theology must be biblical, but it must also relate the issues, or it must relate the concerns of the Bible. And a part of the Bible is this thing of bringing man into total relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And we believe that the idea of conversion is not just conversion to a person, Jesus, but conversion to a lifestyle, to an understanding of a new reality, which we call the kingdom of God. A Caribbean evangelical theology will then need to address those traditional issues mentioned before of Caribbean theology. But as evangelical, it must speak to the issues of whom Jesus is, who mankind is, created in the image and likeness of God, and the fact that we ought to be found in a relationship with God in which we can be all that He wants us to be. We call this shalom, total peace, total oneness with God. This is what Caribbean theology ought to be aiming for from an evangelical perspective, and I think it is quite possible. Let us continue dialogue on this issue.